Hi everyone, welcome back to the Tackle Cave. Today we'll be talking about propeller jig heads like this and how to make them at home. So what are propeller jig heads? They're actually jig heads like this. These are two examples I've tied previously that have propellers attached to the hook shank. So what these do, actually, when you retrieve them on straight retrieve, you put them in water with a lot of current, this thing's gonna spin. This propeller is gonna spin like that, Try and get it. Can you see? It spins. So what this actually does is that it creates a lot of flash in the water because you can find propellers in gold or silver. It's going to put out a lot of flash in the water. When this spins, it's going to put out vibration. It's going to put out some noise. You can't really hear it, I think, but there is a bit of noise that comes out from this. So jig heads, as I said, they're obviously meant to be fished with soft plastics. These things can be used by themselves. They also catch fish by themselves without any soft plastic bodies. Soft plastic bodies, you just attach them as you would normally. You leave a gap and this thing would spin, and the soft plastic, the action would be whatever innate action it already has, such as this one with a bucktail type of tail. It's a jelly jig. I did this in another video, so you can have a look at how to make one of these if you're interested in that. Okay, so what do we need to actually start making a propeller jig head? We need a few things, such as thread, any thread of your choice. You can use YGK dental floss. I'm using rod building thread in size A. So obviously I have a lot of it around, so I just use this. You need some super glue, you need scissors, and you need jig heads and propellers and fly beads. So the first thing we need is we are going to need to look at our jig heads. So these are jig heads, or rather jig head types that you should not use. These are actually jig heads with collars on them. If you can see, all these have little collars over here. These are actually to hold the soft plastic in place, so when the fish bites or you get snagged, the soft plastic lure does not come off. Obviously, it's going to be really hard to tie something like that on with a propeller. You're going to need to cut this off, remove the lead. I do this sometimes. It's not very easy. It's going to be very time consuming, so don't use these at all because it's not going to work very well. Changes the weight of a jig head if you cut it off. What you actually need is jig heads that look like this. These are collarless jig heads. I've actually cast these myself, so you can't really buy them in the shop. If you notice, there's actually no collars on these things. Just a round jig head, no barbs, nothing like that. These are ideal. The propeller can go straight in, no problems with that. You can also find these commercially, such as this one made by Major Craft. I think it's a 2 gram. If you notice, there's no collar or barb as well. So you can use these. Look for these type of jig heads to do this. The next thing you'll need is these types of materials. So I don't think I can really show really well on the camera. These are actually like fly tying beads. These are cone heads. This is actually like to put on skirts, and these are propellers. So you'll need at least one type of bead that matches your hook gauge. So I've got a few types here. So when you guys are actually looking for beads to do this, I don't really know if the camera is going to pick this up very well because it's quite small. If you notice, one side here has a small hole, and if I flip that around, this actually has a bigger hole. So these are actually offset type of fly beads. If you get beads like this, which have the same type of hole on either side, it's not really going to work for you. So this is a type of bead with the same size hole on both sides. So you need something like that, which is an offset fly bead. You're also going to make sure that the fly bead is going to match the size of your propeller you're using. If you notice on this one, this little bead is just fitting over or just touching the barb of the hook. So don't push it in just yet. We'll just explain the other parts first. Get one of our propellers out, put it on the corner there. I think this is a medium here. So this will actually fit, I think, quite well on this jig head over here, which is kind of like, I think, a 3 or 4 gram jig head. So what this bead actually does is actually a stopper for the propeller. Like that. And it also acts as a bushing, so it can spin quite freely. The thing is, you have to be careful that you don't get any glue on the front. You should only glue up to the maximum of halfway on the back. If you mess this up, your propeller will not spin. You're going to have to clean all that super glue out to actually make this jig work, and you probably wrecked the jig already if you've glued too much. So I'm going to change the camera angle and put it on the fly vise so you guys can probably take a closer look while I do this. Okay guys, I've managed to change the camera angle with the fly vise over here. So the first thing we need to know is that we need to leave a gap in between the jig head here and the propeller. So maybe about 5 millimeters would be good. So this will actually allow the propeller to move up and down freely, and it won't get sandwiched between the bead, the thread, or the jig head itself. You need free spinning propellers to actually make this work well. So I'm just going to take this off and I'm going to put my bead on to show you. So when you put your bead on, as I said, that there's two sides to this bead. There's one big side and there's a small side. I'm going to slot the big side facing the jig head. So the small side will be facing that way and the big side will be facing this way. Okay, so I'm going to put it inside. You'll know if it's too big or it's too small. You always have to fit the bead to the propeller size and to the gauge of the hook. If it's too small, you're going to notice that you're going to need to debarb the hook to actually get the bead inside. That means it's too small. If it's too big, it will fall out by itself and the barb will not even catch it. Next thing we do is we just have a loop here. So we kind of need that jig head to be like this, so we give a little gap in between the propeller and the jig head itself. The bead's going to need to be here, so we're going to need to put some thread over here. But to do that, first we're going to push everything in front, prepare our thread and our bobbin, and we're going to just tie off this part. You're going to make the thread bit big enough so you can hold the inside of that bead so it doesn't slip off. You want it pretty tight. Just going to cut it off here. So you can see my bead can still be moved a bit, so I need that front part a bit thicker. Just thicken that up with our rod building thread. Make sure it's wrapped a bit to the back. If you wrap a little bit more down the shank, it actually acts as a little bait keeper as well. You don't want to do too much, just a bit like that. Just make sure there's a little protrusion like that. So once you've wrapped your thread, you can push your bead back. So you can notice there's a space between the propeller and the jig head here. It will allow for some free spinning. I can't really push that bead back anymore because the thread's stopping me. So at this point, I know I'm done for the thread. One more tip for you guys, if you're doing this, it's always quite messy. So one thing you can do is you can always, if you have it clamped in the jig head like straight, always angle your jig head upwards. So any glue that you put on the top will actually flow backwards rather into the propeller if you put it like that. So this actually helps a lot in cleanup if you actually screw it up or you put too much glue and it goes into the propeller. So we're just going to put that up, facing upwards. So any glue will actually go down towards the end of the hook. Just going to put this on with my super glue and my cigarette rolling paper. You can use anything else to blot any excess that comes out. So I'm just going to put some of that on the thread. Just blot it off if there's too much. At the same time, I'm going to push my bead back so it locks into that thread. I'm going to let that dry for a little while. After that, I'm going to glue it one more time so there's a little edge around that bead of super glue just to strengthen it a little. So I'll be right back once this dries. Okay guys, so I think my super glue is kind of dried, so the next thing we're going to do, put that hook back into the horizontal position. We're going to cut that thread off, but we're not going to cut it right at the base yet. We're just going to cut it like somewhere here. You can always cut the base later when we are finished. So we're going to put a bit more glue. Just take my dabbing paper again and just strengthen that little joint. Although I'm using the dabbing paper so I don't get more on the front, I want it at the back to strengthen all these joints here. Don't you want to use so much that it drips off. So if you can see, I've actually put a little like ramp that goes up into the bead, maybe up to halfway. So this will actually secure the bead and make it a lot stronger than it was if you just used the thread and the glue at the base. So let that dry again and we'll come back to this. Okay guys, we're back once our super glue and our second super glue ramp has dried up. The next thing we're going to do once everything is dry is we're going to have to test the propellers. A lot of these, they have to be hand tuned so they actually spin well. I'm going to demonstrate. How I check? It's by blowing it. If it spins really fast and really well, that means I've done quite a good job. If it doesn't, that means I have to tune it. So let's try just by blowing it. I'm just going to blow it now. It does spin, but it's not really smooth. So sometimes I have to bend the angles of those blades a little with my hands. So I'm just going to twist one in each direction like that. Just twist it a little bit. Try again. It's getting there, but not quite great yet. just a bit more. You know, you have to play with this thing a while. Every single one of these you need to do a blow test until you get it right. Not bad, getting better. Just gonna try and bend the blades back a bit. Okay, see, that's nice. So this will actually spin quite well in the water like that. I have to make sure every single one of these, you know, if I make them, actually works in a way that actually spins really well and it's really smooth. If it doesn't spin at all, even though no matter what you're doing, that obviously means there's going to be some super glue stuck on the hook shank or in the propeller on the front of the bead. You have to slowly, like, you know, use a little pin or something and just clean it all out. It's really hard to salvage your jig heads once you do this because you'll have a whole mess with all the super glue. So do it properly if you're going to do this. So yeah guys, we've taken this off the fly vise. We've cut off the tag end with our little scissors here and all ready and complete. We can do a few more if you wanted to, you know. These things are pretty expensive, so make a lot of them, use them a lot, they're good. So yeah, that actually brings us to the end of our video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you have any questions about this, what to use, where to get stuff, leave comments below. If you learned something, you know, you like this video, want to see more content, please like and subscribe. Thanks guys, see you guys again.